Oh my God, Fujos. The second season of How to Win Over Your Crush. And also the second season of Kiss Me If You Can has returned. And baby, I am excited. The question is, what am I reading? And I am reading assortment of a few reads. As you can see from my shorts and a few of my recent videos, I have broke down the stories that have captivated my spirit, captivated my soul. They are the stories that I really do gravitate and relate to. But I also have other stories that I am deeply enjoying and looking forward to seeing how this story rolls out. Now, How to Win Over Your Crush, baby. The way season one ended, okay? The way I was so irritated with the top. But I have a few recommendations in this video of reads that I am enjoying currently at the moment and so happy that they are back for the second season as far as the two that I mentioned. And those are the two that are back for the second season. But let's get into this video. Okay, guys, welcome back to the Hippie Fujoshi, and it's your girl, Hippie. I'm definitely going to get into the reads that I am enjoying, along with the other reads that I am reading. Okay, now Kiss Me If You Can is back for its second season. Okay, the first season, if you haven't tapped into it, I will tell you to tap into it. This is one Omega verse that I eat up because I love the dynamic where the bottom is almost as equally or two-way point stronger than the alpha, which gives a level of vigor to where the alpha feels like their omega can truly protect them, and a sense of where they're in distress to where they cannot protect themselves. And as we can see the dynamic between Josh and Chase not really knowing that they have a baby together, aka baby Pete, I eat it up. Okay. Now, in the second season, we see that Josh and Chase are getting relatively close. And also, with the recent two chapters that Legend have dropped, Hint to me felt like that evil, conniving, and nasty brother of Chase, which sadly to say, he is definitely going to be getting his own story. If I'm not mistaken, it's called Desire Me If You Can, which, I will actually tap into it because I honestly want to know who is actually going to love that foul notion of a man. Okay? Inquiring minds want to know, and plus the redhead fireman look like he's delicious. And if he is able to tame that monster, tame that demon, and give him some sense that you hope God can manifest and hope it can stay, I would like to know and see it. Okay? Now, Kiss Me If You Can, the second season, I am loving the dynamic of these two. And also, I am still clutching my pearls and waiting for the moment when Chase finds out about Pete. Now, I don't know how Chase will take it towards Josh, but I feel like Chase will be open to Pete once he sees Pete's adorable face. And these recent two chapters, I ate it up. What I was saying is, I felt like in these two recent chapters, I feel like Chase brother has an idea that Josh is not a beta and that Josh is an omega. And we can clearly see that to a point, Chase doesn't really want to commingle with omegas off of the fact that he feels that since he's an alpha, he can put them in a state of where they can't control themselves, where he has ultimate control over them. And I think maybe there may be more to his dynamic and his somewhat fear of dealing with omegas on that level. But we can see that that's not at the top of his list. He wants to be with a lover that truly consents to all of the sexual things they tend to get into. And Josh is fitting the bill, but Chase doesn't realize he's an omega that you already bonded with. So, guys, if you haven't checked out Kiss Me If You Can, I will tell you to go check it out. I am super happy, super excited that we got season two. All right, and let's get into the next story. Since we are already on the wave of an Omega verse type of flow with what I am reading currently, adding to my already reads, okay? we have Accidental Baby. Now, Accidental Baby, I am eating it up. The Omega gets pregnant off a one night stand with the Alpha. Now, the Alpha is the CEO in the Omega's form of a supervisor. But the Omega does not know that the Alpha, who is his technically his boss, is the one that he had a one night stand with, and also the one who is the baby's daddy. Okay. Now, the thing about this Omega has face blindness, meaning he can't really see people's faces. He recognizes people by, I guess, the clothing or to a point, the tone of their voice. But since he is pregnant, he can't tolerate other people's pheromones. So now the thing is the fact that the Omega has the face blindness, like I said, he doesn't know that the Alpha he had relations with is the supervisor and the CEO that keep pushing up on him because the Alpha wants to pursue more with the Omega. My prediction of somewhat of a bit more of the backstory of these two, which we haven't really indulged too much into the backstory of these two per se. We haven't really indulged into the Alpha's backstory. I feel like the Alpha has always had a thing for the Omega, and once he saw the Omega outside of work, drinking and open to whatever the night is willing to bring, he stepped up to the plate and did the best he felt he could do in that bedroom and thought he had him. But I feel like where the Alpha is really drawn to the Omega, the fact that the Omega has face blindness, he doesn't know how attractive the Alpha is. Therefore, the Omega gives him a different response than what everybody else gives him. The Omega is not drawn into his looks because honestly, he can't see his face. And in the situation they're in now, the Omega is pregnant, and the only person pheromones the Omega can tolerate is the Alpha. He doesn't understand that the Alpha is the baby's daddy, and the Alpha has no idea that he has a baby on the way. Now, like I said, this story, I will say that this story is a very interesting read because you are highly, highly interested on how these two are going to find out how much each other really mean to each other once they find out that they have a baby together. They're both confused. He doesn't know the Alpha's the baby's daddy, and the Alpha doesn't even know he's about to be a baby's daddy. That makes this story even more interesting and funny within its own self. So I highly recommend you guys to check out Accidental Baby. Now let's get into the next one. How to Win Over Your Crush is back for the second season. Now, the ending of the first season, I love a read with, to a level, a good flashback. We get a good backstory, leading into season 2, the ending of season 1. We find out that, what's his name? Hyun, who is the bottom. We find out that his mother is fully aware of his strong like, his unrequited love that he has for CEO. I think that's the name of the top. And we become fully aware that the little boy is his brother, not his son. But we are fully aware that CEO, the top, is under the misconception that Hyun was with a woman and that the little boy is his son, and something may have happened to the mother, hence why he's a single parent. All because his little brother calls him his father, and the little brother is in a space where all of his friends have a father, so why can't he? In all reality, Hyun is his big brother. Um, we see that Sion is coming to the realization that he may be in strong like the way Hyun was when they were younger, especially when Hyun built the strength to confess his feelings to CO. But I feel like Hyun confessing his feelings and maneuvering the way he did with CO was a way to get that off his chest so he wouldn't carry a what if. But in the back of Hyun's mind, he always felt that Co was more attracted to females and that he was just more of a trial and error type of thing to just say, or to just say, I played with a guy type of situation. But in all reality, Sion is in love with Hyun, and he has been all these years because he has carried this form of vengeance, which is not vengeance, it's a level of sadness, but he gave it the name of vengeance that Hyun ghosted him when they were younger and graduated high school. As we can see, something obviously happened in Hyun's life to where he stepped up to be the father figure role to his little brother. So hopefully we get more background story on what particularly happened to Hyun's father to why the little brother would call him his dad. And hoping that CO gets a goddamn clue that he is in love with Hyun just as much as Hyun's in love with him. And he just needs to stop playing these little games and grow up and be a damn man because he's irritating. He causes situations, and I know for a fact if he ruined things for my babies, okay, Seo Ha, and I think the little brother name is Hyun Woo. If you mess up their relationship, Seo, you and me, bro. You and me, bro. I don't know what's liable to happen. I don't know. Mm-mm. So the previous recommendations I mentioned are on Lezen, but this particular story is on Manta. Okay. Codename March was definitely a recommendation from a Fujo who I love her videos and I love her recommendations. And she recommended Codename March as a read. Now, baby, this read, I'm going to be honest with you. As you can see the tags, I made sure I kind of made a few tags more visible. If there is more of them, you can go check them out. But this is definitely a red flag read. Okay. The top is legit a super soldier. Like he was an orphan and man made pump with whatever the hell that made him into the super soldier that he is now today. And how this world works is everybody is based on the levels that they live and dwell. And he is relatively on the top level, being that he is an officer and he's one of the best officers that they have, that he completes missions with top tier success. Hence, he's a super soldier, so he's been pumped with shit to make him efficient and guaranteed to succeed. And he is one specimen that tend to shoot for the stars and has done better than the others that were created with him, shall I say. Now the bottom is at the lowest of levels to live in. He is Poa. And of course he owes a debt. You know how that story goes. And he was dealing with, you know, the local drug guys and in the house of gambling. And the reason why it's called Codename March is because the place where he works at, where he delves in drug selling and usage and gambling and all of that, prostitution and all that good stuff. Um, Everybody's named by a month of the year. So his name, I think it's called Sukra, represents March. So these two end up intertwining once the dude, I think his name is Mr. Chow, who's the head of the house that he works in, takes on a partner, which happens to be the super soldier, who he doesn't know is technically investigating him because he's been cahoots with other lieutenants who have been up and through their business and means to feed a certain person a drug to be a part of a project called Harvest, which happens to be the bottom. Now, this is in presenting that it's a possible impreg, being that the bottom, who's been ingesting these drugs from the lieutenants who's been in cahoots with this house, of gambling and other sorts of fun, illegal activities, have been pumping him with a drug for about, I want to say about 2 years, that can make him able to have babies, being that the government wanted more productions of the super soldier without the way they went about it the first time, because they didn't want their shit blown up in the media. So they figured they can produce more super soldiers if these super soldiers have babies and produce many super soldiers that grow into super adult super soldiers like them. So far, listen, the super soldier's in love. After he's seen what he looked like when he's fully clean, like he sees his true beauty. And I'm not gonna lie, a lot of men, once they see what he looked like, once they clean him up, because when they first meet, he has a whole bunch of like, I think like Presto tan on him, and it makes him look dirty and mucky. But once they got to see what he really looked like he turns head, he turned faces. And that dirty talk, that dirty talk, that dirty talk. Oh my God. But the super soldier is super, super addicted to him and his apple bottom. And he is just in a situation where he is trying to get the bottom to come out and say he wants him to get him pregnant to seal the deal that he's been taking drugs that made him able to have a baby, being that it's illegal. But I'm under the pretense that the bottom is not even aware that he's been taking drugs that gave him a uterus. So I haven't completed season 1 as of yet. I think I'm up to chapter 22. But I do recommend this read. When I say it is so good so far, it is so good, but it is not for the faint of heart because the super soldier is nothing to be played with. Like I said, you see it says red flag. It says red flag for a reason. So read at your own caution and let's get into the next read. All right, so we are going to get into Lesson Unspoken. Now, this read, the first chapter I read, which was, if I'm not mistaken, a world drop. And then the next chapter, I think they dropped like 8 chapters. So I've only read the first chapter. But from the first chapter, baby, this read is giving that the top may possibly be a red flag, and not a red flag in a manner of, to a point, abusing the bottom. I feel like a red flag as far as maybe a psycho killer. Who knows? It's early, but from the first chapter, you get that the bottom, not too long ago, I think about a year or two ago, lost his boyfriend of what, 12 to 15 years. They lived together. His whole life was built around this person, and he was a teacher. So he had a particular student who seemed like he couldn't be reformed, but he seemed to be the only teacher who could get to him and was a bit more understanding of him. And it just so happens one day this student gets into a situation and a person, innocent bystander, steps in to help him, and this bystander gets murdered. The bystander ends up being the bottom's boyfriend. And the thing about this student who appears to be the top, as we can see, older bottom is one of the hashtags and devoted top. The top appears to be okay with going to the afterlife, which he has came out his mouth and told the teacher. So the teacher goes through an emotional wave after losing his boyfriend, like what happened. And you tend to have those what ifs. Like at the end of the day, the student was okay with going to the Northern Lights. So why did my man had to go to the Northern Lights and he's still here? So so to get to a level of resolve, since if I'm not mistaken, they never really found the person who did what they did to the bottom's boyfriend. And the only person who can account for the events that happened that day was the previous student, his former student. And we get to a point where at the end of the chapter, the teacher goes to this former student to try to get a level of resolve over the depression that he's been experiencing ever since he lost his boyfriend, where he has quit his job. He has given himself to alcoholic beverages, libations. And we can see that he's to a point where he needs to know what happened to his boyfriend. And the only person who can really answer that question is the former student, being that he was there and he was the one being protected by the boyfriend. So I'm interested on how this story plays out, and also how long this student has been in love with this teacher, because it seemed like he's been in love with you prior before the boyfriend died. And inquiring minds want to know, yeah, what really happened? How did the boyfriend end up getting killed? Helping him. We would like to know. Last but not least, we are going to talk about a blessed night. Now, a blessed night is definitely going to give you manipulative childhood friend dynamic, and we also have a religious dynamic within this story. Okay. Um, if I'm not mistaken, the bottom's name is Eon Chung, and we have Ian, and what is the other one's name? The brown head one. Okay. I can't remember the brown head one name, but the brown head one seems like the one Ian Chung to a point deeply like. And with the recent chapter, we noticed that Ian, who is the blonde head one with the fairly long hair, which looked like he got like a little ponytail in the back, noticed when they were children that Unchung was attracted to men. Now, it appears that Unchung was in a closet that he didn't know that he was dwelling in, but ever since that night, he got drunk after expressing his deep sadness of being broken up with his girlfriend, which finding out the information we found out in this recent chapter explains why the girlfriend wasn't satisfied in the bedroom, because she technically wasn't Unchung's flavor, if you get what I'm saying. So it seems like when they were really young, Ian noticed what type of flavor Unchung liked. Basically, how he blushed at it looked like a Hyung that they knew that came to give him a hug and greet him. But it still doesn't explain and justify what the fuck he did. And we still don't know if the other friend was a part of the graping that night when he was getting over that breakup, and he was obviously really drunk and he was taken advantage of. And we find out that Ian was one of the people that took advantage of him. But the question is, did the other friend take a part in taking advantage of him, or was it just Ian by himself? A lot of questions. But it seems like Ian is not opposed to being the bad guy. But to what extent and for how long? Because it's looking like that Ian may have had reserved feelings for Unchung, which he does tell Unchung that he is not the only friend or the only guy that wants to tap his peaches. Apparently, Unchung got a long list of wannabe lovers who wants to get underneath the covers. But we see that Unchung is willingly to a point attracted to the brown head friend. And we can see that the brown head friend has had a thing for Unchung too ever since they were children in a few flashbacks. Now, all three of these gentlemen have been praising the Lord in the same place ever since they were kids. Like, they have crosses around their necks. They have these friendship rings, but baby, them friendship rings are gone now that Unchung has gotten sexually assaulted. And he wants to know why. And he kind of want to stay away from Ian, but he keeps having dreams and to a level cravings of what Ian gave him that night and a second night when he presented that he was the one that sexually assaulted him. Listen, it's a lot with this story and I am into it. We obviously have a open present to be red flag, but he could be a yellow flag. We don't know. Ian can have the great turnaround, you know. He may present as a red flag in the beginning, but deep down inside, he's a yellow flag. He's just like shaking the table every now and then, being a little stubborn, but he's really just dangerously in love. You never really know. But I'm looking forward to seeing how this story plays out. And I also will be recapping and reacting to the story because, baby, listening to the mess, I'm really just not going to be able to keep it to myself. Guys, you already know if you like our recap reacts and if you like these recommendations, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Get us up in the algorithm. Drop your comments below. Let me know if you have tapped into these reads or if you have a few reads that you just want to recommend me to take a gander at and recap to. And also, you never know which other Fujo may be looking at the comments and may be looking for a read that you actually do recommend. You never know. Guys, you already know, be you, be amazing. And most importantly, keep reading those BL Manhwas. Layers, my beautiful BL Fujos out there.
She's a hippie with the drip, straight New York on the lift stage, burning while she's scrolling through the sweetest little ships. Fresh tea, hot take, she gon' break it down clean, be a glow in the aura like a neon dream.